All right, Beatriz, Noemi, you're here. I think we can slowly start. Hello again, everyone. I'm Data Girolashvili, curator of Residency Unlimited, an international arts residency program in New York City. And today we will have a talk called Art and Permaculture, Intersections for Collective Growth. This is an online talk, and thank you for joining us from different parts of the world, from different time zones. This presentation will be recorded, and later the recording will be provided online for those who could not attend today. It is my absolute pleasure to introduce our speakers from Quinta das Relvas, but better pronunciation will come after, an NGO based in Portugal. Its co-founder and director, artist and researcher, Beatriz Manteigas, who was in our residency program last year. It's very good to see you again. And Noemi Ferreira, artist, curator, artist in residence and program coordinator at Quinta das Relvas. Noemi, thank you so much for joining. Nice to meet you. And based on their interdisciplinary approaches and involvement with Quinta das Relvas, Beatriz and Noemi will present their ongoing research at the intersection of art and permaculture, discussing how it responds to today's urgent ecological challenges and share with us how their interdisciplinary approach has become a path toward collective growth. On a more technical level, we will have a Q&A session after the presentation. So if you have any questions, please write them in the chat section, and we will address them towards the end after the presentations are over. Beatriz and Noemi, we're very grateful for your involvement and excited to hear your presentation. Thank you, and I will be back with my video and voice towards the Q&A session. The floor is yours.
Data, thank you so much. Let me just share my screen to see if we start this properly. You see my screen, right? All good? Okay.
Yes, we can see your screen.
So thank you, Data. Thank you. It's good to be back to Residency Unlimited, even if just for an hour and online. Thank you, Natalie. Thank you, Mariko, everyone still over there. And first thing, I want to be sorry for my English. I will do my best, but I miss some vocabulary sometimes. And please keep in mind that this is an ongoing research, not by aspiring druids, but by a bunch of projects of all trades. And our motivation for this talk is to put to your consideration what we can summarize as the following. The reconsideration of our impact on planet Earth can only be found if we rethink how we consider not just nature, but reality, ourselves in relation. And as Félix Guattari was saying already in the 70s, there are three ecologies to consider: environmental, social, and mental. And only by considering the intersection between these spheres of existence can we find not closed answers, but honest and empathetic attitudes and ethics to promote dialogue and go further on a sustainable way towards a resilient existence. And here at the farm, what we believe is that art is the most powerful tool to open up these possibilities, and permaculture provides a very useful guide to start this process. Let me just change something here for me. Yeah. So this will be a very long introduction to share with you how we did end up merging art and permaculture. And I will briefly show you our website, which is not running properly. So you should see different images of the farm, but you can see it later. This was to say that the farm didn't look like this all the time, of course, and we are at the farm since 2016, working on it and finding out what's our call. And this is what I will start sharing with you. I'm just confirming that I'm sharing what I want. So in 2016, my partner and I, we were both working in Lisbon, and we were doing what most youngsters do in Portugal. So we were working on the tourist section and services to pay the bills and have a few money to have a few time to do our stuff. And back then I was studying fine arts. I was doing my master in fine arts. And Antonio had just finished his course on event management. But what he really liked was already sustainability, because he was working on this big festival, internationally recognized Boom Festival. And Boom is world famous because they implemented for the first time a lot of sustainable ecological solutions on a giant venue. So Antonio was very motivated to learn more about that, and that was his call back then. Mine was visual arts. So we were not very happy with our life on the big city, and at some point I invited Antonio to come to Quinta. To Quinta means farm, so to this place my family had in the on the northern part of Portugal. And when we came here for the first time, we were brainstorming on what can we do on this amazing place full of potential, besides turning this into a wedding farm, because that's what you do when you have a farm in Portugal. And yeah, so we started making, let's say, a SWOT analysis. Let me change this. My image didn't change, did it? Noemi? No, right? We were struggling with this before. Let me try to share my screen again, because I don't know why this is happening from time to time.
No, it's good. It changed now.
It's good?
Yep.
Okay, thank you so much. Noemi, please let me know if it freezes again or something. Okay. So once at the farm, we did this kind of SWOT analysis on what we had. So we knew what we wanted to do. We wanted to work on what we loved on this and with this specific context. We wanted to share our passion, and we wanted to keep learning. And that was very clear to us. We didn't want to become experts on a specific thing and just share this knowledge that we would have with others. So how to do this? We knew that we wanted to work on art and sustainability. We thought that it made sense to create learning opportunities, not just for us, but also for others. And on that sense, we started having this idea of merging the notion of teacher and student and stage and studio. So this was what we wanted to do. And then we had these pros and cons. So we had the space, we had energy, we had time, we had skills, we had this giant will to do stuff. We just didn't have the money, which of course it's a problem. So we started thinking about this question: how can we get money to do what we want to do, what we love? And Antonio had this idea of applying to a European Union fund. Back then, well, it was already called Erasmus Plus, but before it used to be called Youth in Action. And Antonio was familiar with this program from previous life, working with other NGOs. So we wrote our first project, our first application. And since this idea was Antonio's, he was allowed to choose the first theme. And already in 2016, he chose Permaculture for All as the title of this first project of ours. And it was approved. And it was a giant surprise to everybody. We were trying to connect with the town council, with neighbors, etc. Nobody believed that we would have these funds and this project approved, and we did. So we had just a couple of months to create the conditions to make this happen. And those were to create a dorm, to create toilets, to create a communitary kitchen. So we had to create everything from scratch. But a good idea we had back then was to take this money we were getting from the funding program and apply it already on our place. So instead of paying a hotel and a restaurant to cover for what we needed, we decided to take this money, build our own stuff, buy the things we needed, bunk beds, whatever, and save this money by collecting these things that we could use on the long run. So on that moment, long before reading Guattari, we realized that to guarantee ecological sustainability, that was what we thought we were looking for. We understood that we had to guarantee our own emotional, social, and financial sustainability. And so we started working on all of them at the same time by trial and error. And that was more or less how our NGO was created. So Data said it in the beginning, but just to make it short, we are a farm. Quinta means farm, as I said before. So Quinta das Relvas is this increasingly ecological farm where we are now living and working. So we came up with this current definition that is Quinta das Relvas Association. It didn't change.
It didn't change.
But why?
It's good.
I'm so sorry because we were trying this before. It happened once.
It was the wrong finger. It was the wrong finger.
But now it's good?
Beatriz. Yeah.
Okay, sorry. So again, Quinta das Relvas came up with this current definition that is Quinta das Relvas Association dedicates itself to non-formal education activities in arts and sustainability with a view to a better social future. This because maybe we'll have time to speak a bit about this, but since the beginning, we also understood that we didn't want to be closed inside the farm. We wanted to open the farm gates and also promote things outside the farm for the local community to engage with us directly. So it consists on a multidisciplinary team that uses an increasingly sustainable farm as a laboratory to collaboratively develop, share, and promote educational experiences. In this way, Quinta das Relvas promotes social participation and collective creative and critical thinking for a more sustainable and resilient future, for the reconsideration of the rural context and the decentralization of access to enjoyment and training in the area of culture. So after a couple of years doing this, we came to the conclusion that we had to start merging and refining what we were doing. And the reasons behind this feeling was that, were a few. And one of them was the context. So the people and the place were organically doing this and willing to go deeper on these possible intersections. And that intersection was becoming trendy, but often we felt that often that intersection was being approached on a vague and sofa-based way, perpetuating this idea of conquering nature through scientific and pseudoscientific categorization. So we felt that since we were actually working on the field, we could add something and maybe actually add something that could be important to what we were seeing out there. But also, and now I'm quoting Linda Weintraub, that it became a friend of the farm, for the following reasons that put this on a very clear way and that we can all relate to. Because responding to current environmental crisis is a singular challenge of the current era. Because artists possess astute communication skills that can disseminate existing environmental strategies of reform and preservation. Because art's aspirational capacity can activate behavioral changes and policy reforms of custodial care for our planetary home. Because the creative ingenuity that is the special province of art can be directed to life-sustaining problem-solving, and because art has long served as conscious of a culture. And, and we deeply need this. So now the question is, why permaculture? And to answer that, I'm going to share with you a 4-minute video that we created at a farm, and I think it's a very good way to be introduced to what we are talking about from now on. Just tell me if you can
All living things are dependent upon energy.
Good.
But we're only dependent upon energy insofar as we need it. Now, the basic distinction between us and the rest of life on this planet is the rest of life takes energy as it needs it. We are the only form of life the world has ever heard of that takes energy because it wants it, not because it needs it.
As a free human being, we can question things, and we should question everything. In a real world, you would be able to put a lot more swales around connecting ponds, small water features, you always connecting. Permaculture is thinking. Permaculture is all about the way you look at the world around you, and you understand that there is nature around you wherever you are. We are nature.
The permaculture has 3 founding ethics: care for the earth, care for people, and sharing resources, or like we say in Australia, fair share. The first one, to me, is probably the most important. If we don't have a planet, obviously no species is going to survive. So we really need to look after the planet. Now, how we translate that in permaculture is what you do to the planet. And that's really important. Your ethic, your personal ethic, and how you connect with the planet. This is the moment we turn out from humans back into earthlings. Kids get it.
A lot of people are afraid of nature these days because they live in the city, they have been living all their lives away from nature.
We arrived to a crossroads.
Us humans, we have a problem. Sometimes we don't really understand what our needs are. The resources that we have available are limited.
As a society of industrial revolution, we're still trying to push on things that we know now, science tells us they don't work. The market makers, they don't hide anymore. They say the market is directed by fear or greed. We always talk about the growth of the economy as something good. Does it need to happen? Do we need to increase consumption?
We have to really get some hands-on around sustainability, not only preach about it.
The future, it's my future, it's the future of everyone. I have to do something, Everything is made for us not to be aware of it, It's like the whole system is like this. Even when I was a child, I was so pessimistic about what was going to happen.
Seeing deforestation and destruction of habitats really troubling to me, and just what is my impact on the world and on those around me.
I just really think we don't really think much about the impact we have.
Okay, I'm back. Noemi, can you confirm that you see what you should?
I confirm. Afterwards,
Thank you.
I'm just sharing with you. Afterwards, you can share the link of the video because I think it would be interesting for people, and I think people are already asking for it.
Okay, thank you so much. Yeah, it's a 30 minutes video, I believe, so this was just the beginning. But actually, you're not able to see me changing my screen again, right? Are you? No.
No,
because I already changed it.
Why permaculture?
Okay, so I'm sorry for this again. I'm trying to solve it. So sharing. Now you see the proper thing. And but give me a second. Okay. So now you have a visual understanding of what we are thinking about here at the farm. But going to the actual concept of it, now I'm going to share a bit of what permaculture is and its history. So permaculture was created on the 70s, on the rise of capitalism, and David Holmgren and Bill Mollison came up with this idea. So David was a master's student on agriculture at the University of Tasmania, and Bill Mollison was his teacher. And David realized that what we were doing when thinking about agriculture was completely the opposite of what natural cycles, systems, etc., were did on a natural way. And we were just doing this differently for obvious financial reasons, and that was not helping anybody. It wasn't helping nature, but it wasn't also helping the productivity of these crops or whatever you are talking about in terms of agriculture. So Bill, who was an academic, he created a curriculum after this idea. And this curriculum was created for him or for them to be able to teach permaculture worldwide. So they came up with this permaculture design course. And David went, Bill went abroad to preach about permaculture worldwide, and David went to a farm in Australia where he is still at, implementing all this on the field. So what Bill Mollison writes on one of his first books goes like, permaculture is the harmonious integration of landscape and people providing their food, energy, shelter, and other material and non-material needs in a sustainable way. Without permanent agriculture, so permaculture, permanent agriculture, there is no possibility of a stable social order. Permaculture design is a system of assembling conceptual, material, and strategic components in a pattern which functions to benefit life in all its forms. And the philosophy behind permaculture is on the working with rather than against nature, of protected and thoughtful observation, of looking at systems in all their functions, and of allowing systems to demonstrate their own evolutions. The word permaculture can be used by anybody adhering to the ethics and principles expressed. And it keeps not changing the screen, right? It does, but with some delay. I think. Sorry for that. So I don't know if any of these permaculture guys ever met Guattari, but what he was writing at the same time, so in the 70s, goes like this. Integrated world capitalism is not only destroying the natural environment and eroding social relations, but is also engaged in a far more insidious and invisible penetration of people's attitudes, sensibility, and minds. The world is shrinking, and so are we. It is a question of making a pragmatic intervention on one's own life. We must abandon scientific or pseudoscientific paradigms and return to aesthetic ones. It is an aesthetico-existential process. And if we don't focus on these scientific parts, on what I read just before, we can really relate to this when we think about social media, fake news, everything that we are living nowadays. And this was written on the 70s. It's crazy how accurate this still is. And this all makes sense, right? But what we came to realize was that when turning to permaculturers to ask them what is art in permaculture, they all had very straight answers, and they would go for patterns, land art, eco-design. So solutions on aesthetics based in nature, appropriating natural materials, but missing the full creative potential that is specific to artistic processes to answer directly to an agenda to bring people closer to nature. So we had a lot of arguments inside our team about this. And we realized that that was a paradox, because permaculture was promoting a deep critical thinking to question all aspects of human life in relation with other humans and non-humans, but neglecting what could be its best ally, art and its specific characteristics. And you are not seeing the image I want.
No.
Oh my God. Why? Now you do?
Now it's good. Yeah. Now it's good.
But I can't really control it because it has some delay that I don't know why it's happening. Okay.
It changed.
Whew. So now I have to go back to 2016, because in 2016, when we started the NGO and we came to the farm, I was also starting my PhD research on fine arts, on drawing. And back then I had no clue what permaculture was, neither was I dedicated to ecological issues. But I was motivated to understand the relation between art and social and political matters. And what I came up with, I delivered the thesis in 2022, ended up helping us understand what was missed by finding this intersection between philosophical, artistic, and finally ecological thought. So I'm going to read a bit of my thesis abstract. And so Lifeline, How to Draw Metaphors of the Real, is a theoretical and practical thesis dedicated to the relationship between drawing and the real through an analysis of realism to define it as an attitude. In that analysis, it is shown that realism focuses on the representation of the relationship between the individual and society, which requires consideration of the context and commentary by the author of the work, and also on the way in which representation itself operates. However, when the real comes into question, the simulacrum becomes real and necessary to the human condition. And a possible truth is that of the shared understanding, which starts and legitimates itself in the subject and aspires only to intersubjectivity, so the real, like signification, as mere objects of desire. So kind of a platonic love. And here we have Neo for obvious reasons. So disregarding the possibility of a false innocence, it is argued that realism will be an attitude marked by an eagerness to say that precedes the how to say as a continuous lifeline to human and real, not through its representation, but by being representative of them. And you don't see Neo. How sad is it to throw a joke that nobody sees?
He's there.
Now you do. Okay. I already know how to play with this, I guess. So you see that in realism, we just found out that there were some direct connection between these ideas by the realists and the permaculturers. So you see that in realism, we are talking about attitudes, and in permaculture, you are talking about ethics. So care for the planet, care for the people, and fair share. In realism, you are talking about real and signification as objects of desire. And in permaculture, you are working with nature through observation. You are no longer working after previously acquired knowledge. You are working what is in front of you, and that you are understanding yourself in relation. When you talk about realism, you are talking about intersubjectivity, so the understanding between different elements that are human. And when you talk about permaculture, you are talking about interconnectivity, so the collaboration between elements that can be human or non-human. So what the realists and the permacultural agree on is very simple. You must keep your feet on the ground, because that is the only way you can consider yourself, the ground, and your relation with it, avoiding any false innocence created by any kind of discourses that impose themselves on that relation. And once you guarantee that your proposal might not be objective, but it will be real, it will be honest, and it will be a solidarity proposal. In other words, the realists and the permacultural, they both agree that it's meaningless to speak in the name of or against reason, truth, or knowledge. They both question what to do now that faith and enlightenment seem beyond recovery. And they both might agree on this answer through solidarity, so a will to understand and be understood between humans and non-humans, an understanding that relies on our shared background as earthlings. I don't know if I still have time. I just want to mention a few steps that were important on our evolution here at the farm to merge art and sustainability, as I've been arguing since the beginning. And those are to become a GALA member, so Green Art Lab Alliance member, and I'm leaving here this link so I can also share them later if anyone is interested. But GALA is an international alliance and network, a mycelium-like network of art organizations contributing to environmental sustainability through their creative practices. And 3 projects that we led recently might also be of interest. CurArt is an ongoing project of exhibitions and public programming at the local health center, promoting free, informal, and engaging ways to access culture for collective and critical growth. I will not go further here, but later, if anyone wants to know more about it, we can speak about it and on the questions and answers. And then foundations and seeds. Noemi will speak a bit more about seeds, but what I just wanted to mention is that foundations and seeds were thought or were conceived at the same time by getting these bigger funds to promote bigger projects where we were really willing to give participants training on permaculture. That was the goal of foundation. So all our team members got a PDC, a certified PDC, and this was when we made that video that you just saw. And Seeds was thought for artists, and Seeds was a project that blew our mind when we were conceiving it, because when we first thought about it, and you see it on the title, Means for a Sustainable Art Practice, we were thinking about materials and how to navigate that. How could we give artists better solutions for what they were already doing? And when we started discussing this project with the people that became our guests of honor, so Linda Weintraub, that I told you about before, Yasmin Ostendorf Rodriguez, that is the director of GALA, and Sonia Francisco, and she is a landscape architect from Portugal, we came to realize that there were so many ways to tackle sustainability and ecology, even if you were just talking about art and artistic projects. And Seeds was the starting point for what Noemi will share now with you. And the last thing I want to share and leave you with, to deliver to Noemi, is this phrase, this quote also from a French philosopher from the 70s, again. And Lyotard says, "The fate of thought depends and will depend for a long time between regret and essay." And we are all aware of what we regret. Let's see what we can do about it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Beatriz. Just a short note. Those last images were actually from seeds. So give me just a moment because I want to share my screen too. Okay. Are we good? You see my screen? Cool. So continuing on what Beatriz was saying about the connection between art and permaculture, one of the solutions found was these residencies, and it came. We conceived the program a lot from the seeds experience and what happened there. And as Beatriz was saying, one of the ways to connect this was to consider sustainability in a broader way. Of course, in this residency, we'll focus a little bit on the material side, but we'll try to go a lot further. So I'll speak a little bit about our experience, what has been our experiences in the residencies. This residency program became a lot more solid after these projects mentioned, the seeds and foundations. And it basically took us towards this purpose of going beyond the material and to stimulate artists' minds, not only their practices, in order to develop a sharpened critical thinking. With that in mind, we conceived a program of activities and sessions and a whole thing with some main goals. To give artists space for this creation, to share knowledge, to make them question, and to offer them space to, as I say here, play, and play a little bit more. This is fundamental, to discover when you're playing. And afterwards, what we have in mind is to potentialize the discoveries that you're able to do. So we want these artists to have the opportunity to experiment, to play, and have fun. Actually, the first artist that came to the air residency, she underlined this a lot, the having fun part. You don't need to, sometimes you just need in your artistic practice to stop for a bit, have fun, and this will change your way of thinking. And that's our focus on the residency. Okay, I can tell you that these residencies have three main moments. The first of them is where we encourage artists to practice their observational skills. This means that we're going to work on their attention. We want them to begin understanding how can they potentialize things that surround them. Not only the natural landscape, but mainly the natural landscape, but also everything that you can find. So we're talking about flowers, plants, vegetables, animals, dirt, and so on. You can see here in this picture some of the activities we're doing. So we basically take them to the ground. We want them to see around them, identify what's around them, start thinking about what is around them, and then start using this or experimenting with it based on some recipes that we already have, and try to explore that. Here's where we start working also on the thought behind the harvesting of these natural materials as well. This way of going around and starting to think about these questions will open up finally a dialogue with the artists, and we start understanding what are their questions and stimulating their minds to this kind of critical thinking. So from the start, we try to create this environment of sharing where you as an artist will feel that your voice is relevant. It doesn't matter if you already have experience with natural pigments, with the making of paper, with pastes and other kind of organic material. All that matters is that you are available for this stimulation. What happens a lot of times is that the studio where we work in becomes suddenly a laboratory. Not only a laboratory for these processes, but also a laboratory for us to discuss, to investigate, to very natural and organically start a discussion about the relation between art and sustainability. Antonio usually calls it a laboratory, and I think it's the right expression, especially when you go inside and you see a bunch of people with experiments, which is something that might not be very common for you to see in an artist's studio, but it actually happens. And one of the things that happen as well, and it always does without exception, is that someone will make a mistake, which is not a mistake for us. It's basically the best opportunity you have to find a new recipe. And this is what we stimulate the artists to do as well, is to explore these kind of mistakes, see them as opportunities to go further. Oh, one of the mistakes I can say here was this. This was a paper that started that from a plant, Wandering Jew. And the first time we made this paper, we thought it was going to be a paper. It wasn't at all a paper. It was some sort of paste. And this recipe took us in several other residencies. Several other artists tried and changed it and made completely different materials from it. As a second moment for these residencies, we are going more on depth to the artist personal practice. This means that now you have the knowledge that we are sharing. You already are focused to be stimulated. And now we will help you make these connections and to start sharing these knowledges, not only with us, but within the group, but with everyone, with all other artists. This is fundamental, the sharing part, not only because it goes towards the principles of permaculture, but also because it is art. You will grow much more about when you have this sharing experiences. One of the things we do is we try to share our own experience as artists, being me and Beatriz, also artists. And having very different approaches to this relation between art and sustainability, and also very different kinds of work. We try to share this with the artists so we can ignite somehow this fire that has already started within them. One of the things we do as well is that we take them on some visits to art shows around and local centers. And when we have the opportunity, we try to get them to know other artists as well that can contribute to their growth. Basically, from this point on, we feel that the artists go back to them and go back to their own practices and start working on them. Which means that on the last stage of the residencies, the intention will be to bring the absolute spotlight to your own individual practice. which means that we'll stimulate you to dedicate a lot more time to your own work. And we offer some mentoring in this sense, giving you some feedback, some different perspectives, eventual solutions, and maybe some unexpected ones. All the knowledge that artists gathered so far will lead them at this point to act on it. And this is inevitable because you are so filled with information at a certain point that it just starts coming out naturally. And one of the things that I love personally in these residencies is that at this last stage, you very naturally, you become more familiar not only with the people in Quinta, but also amongst the artists. This means that discussions start appearing, and all the pertinent subjects start being discussed and approached and considered, and suddenly you become more open to a lot more questions that you didn't have before, maybe. And all things considered, in these residencies, we have been working on the attention of the artists, the observational skills, their thought, and helping the artist to establish or clear up these intentions that previously most of us have. And then to discuss all this, but do it with care and do it with love. And again, mentioning one of the fundamentals of permaculture, which is caring for people. This care and love will make you use empathy towards the other, will help you to listen and also to share. And this will, as I said before, help you grow as an artist. So now I'd like you to check out a little bit about our artists that have been going through the residencies. This duo, Kim Noche and Dominica Harrison, they're a good example. This is one of the results of what I was telling you about the Wandering Jew paste. One of the recipes they created was a mix of different things. They wanted so much to do something in 3 dimensions that they started exploring and working on this. And so they were one of the duos that developed a recipe from here. Both illustrators, I believe that this gave them like a great, it fed a lot their work, because it completely explores different textures that they don't usually use in their work. I'll have to say that although I'm showing some of the works done, the main goal is to stimulate your wills in this residency, your ideas, and to enrich your vision more than make you produce a lot. Because we believe that these kind of residencies can influence your work, but progressively. So I'll show you some of the work that was done, some more. Okay, these 3, they were participants on the project mentioned Seeds. This was a long-term project. I'm saying this for you to understand a little bit of where this comes from. Being a long-term project, the artists had residencies in 4 different places, I'm sorry. And one of them, the last one, which was in Galicia, these 3 came together before they were developing individually their work, and then they came together and they worked a lot on fermentation processes, something that they learned in one of these residencies. Okay. What I find very interesting is that it's a completely different approach of what you would expect, maybe. about the relation between art and sustainability. And it all turns around the sharing of a moment of pleasure, and sharing, and I'm sorry, getting people's attention to the amazing amount of time and care and love that is put on every product that is presented on this table. Every product here is presented. They made it themselves. It took a long time doing so. Most of them are fermented, and this takes a while. And all the objects here, which are some spoons and some recipe books, they're made for consumption, for people to intervene, to touch. This was on our final exhibition for seeds. And on this table, people were gathered here and called to participate, to eat, to speak about what they're eating, to share. So it was a very beautiful moment. If I may go, also, I would like to show you Alicia's work. This was in Quinta, and this is one of the recipes that she explored, and then we tried to replicate it, and actually we've done a bunch of different versions. The base for this is bioplastic. It's a bioplastic recipe, which means it has nothing plastic on it. It has only flour, and it makes a beautiful effect, and also considers one of the aspects that I love about some of these works, which is the ephemeral. So this is the ongoing ephemeral process. It will degrade more and more. And I would like to show you also a very funny work from Inés Ballesteros. She, when she was in Quinta, she was very struck by the eucalyptus problem, and we call it eucalyptus problem, but let's call it an issue. The massive production of eucalyptus and how it changed the landscape really bothered her, and so she started speaking with the locals, starting to know more about what was happening, what happened before, how it was before. And she did a bunch of objects, all from leftovers. And well, I wouldn't use this, but this is why it's funny. This is the opportunity that art gives us to approach a subject in also a funny way. Zeno. Zeno was a very particular case in our residencies, because we lived through a big fire when, like, the first day of his residence. It was he won't forget it, and it completely changed the experience for him. And he is a very sensitive person and a very sensitive artist. And from the start, he wanted to pick up the ash and do something with the ash, and that's what he did. And just for you to know this, all the pigments here were stuff that he picked up from the soil. So basically, this is ash. This was a burned hose. This is all made out of clay and some weird white rock that we haven't still identified. It's a mystery. And all of it is ash. This one's very beautiful because it's beautiful in a very melancholic way, because it completely portrays what we were living in the moment. I mean, everything was burning around us, and this is what we saw: a black cloud and the feeling of a very weird feeling, I'd put it like that. So this is a completely different example again. One other thing that we do is that we have a small laboratory, a photography laboratory in Quinta. And it's an analogic laboratory for photography. And some of the artists that have gone there are using natural liquids for developing photography, and one of them is Paulo. And not only was he using this laboratory to use this natural liquids like cafenol, which is made out of coffee, vitamin C, and sodium carbonate. So you can see completely different way of thinking, developing photography. He also just used the old paper that I can personally tell you has a lot more than 50 years old and doesn't exist anymore, but it still works. So not only did he use his surroundings in the sense that he was using natural pigment and liquids, but also he was just using leftovers, but using it in a very smart way, I believe, and a beautiful way, as you can see. Inês also more turned to photography, but with a very different approach. For me, her work is very sensitive as well, in the terms that she can see landscapes on very small details of plants, and this is what she uses in different contexts. As you see here, one of the contexts that we used is an exhibition it's a white room exhibition. Another completely different one is to insert them directly on natural ground. But as you can see here, she picks up these details, inserts them in different contexts, and with this, she builds whole new narratives, whole new worlds. So this is what I find interesting in her work. Okay, this was just to give you a bite of some of the artists that have been through Quinta das Relvas. And to sum it up, we'd like the artists that join these residencies to question, to put in stake, to not accept everything as given, but to see things in a different point of view. So basically change your perspective and leave you eager to learn more about what are their surroundings, what are your people that surround you, and what is the nature that surrounds you, and make the artist grow from these connections with the living world. I just did it. Thank you. I'm sorry if I took too long.
Thank you very much, both of you, Noemi, Beatriz. It's very interesting, and during Beatriz's residency with us, I've often, heard about Quinta, and we've talked a lot about it, and I always imagined and looked at the pictures, and now seeing more of it makes one want to just be there, and do things with you, I think. And thank you again for doing this very important work and sharing this with us. We do have some questions that we can go through now during the Q&A session that I will address one by one. And also thanks to our audience from different parts of the world for joining in, and feel free to share a few more questions in the chat if you have them. We'll take a few to just go through it and then wrap it up, because it's different times and different places, and it might be getting too late for some people too. First question is more on a technical level of the residency, so maybe let's cover those parts. The question is, how long is the typical residency?
Okay, I can answer
Noemi,
that one.
Yeah, maybe you answer that.
Yeah, usually we're proposing like a 1 month residency, but each artist can apply for a week, 2, 3, or 4. Usually we advise you to do more than 1 week, because the first week is where all the activities are focused on, which means that if you do the second week, you will have time to do this development. So it will be much more interesting to participate in 2 weeks and further.
And then there's two questions here, but I will address first of them and one of them, and then the other. So the question is: are there opportunities to any person who wants to explore this artistic approach on sustainability with you? Can anyone who is interested in this intersection join somehow this sharing space? And then on that note, there was another question of when is the residency? So if you could elaborate more in terms of how it works in practical terms if people want to, approach and participate.
Yeah. Noemi, do you want me to answer so that I speak a bit about Grão?
Yeah.
So basically, we are hosting artistic residency since 2017, and we started with a project, Grão, that became an yearly project that was focused, or that is focused on Portuguese artists, young Portuguese artists, or people living in Portugal. And that one is completely free of charge. So anyone can apply, and if they are selected, we are able to host more or less 8 artists. It's completely free, and it goes for 3 weeks with invited artists coming to give some mentoring. We have exhibitions, etc. And we do have a call for Grão open now until the 15th of February. So anyone listening to this, if you are living in Portugal and you are up to 35 years old, you can apply, and that's completely free. And after this Grão experience, we realized that we had a lot of people that didn't match this profile. So people living abroad or people that were older. And that was our motivation to create these residencies that Noemi is leading now. And the truth is that these other residencies go further on these ecological questions. So as Noemi was saying, we promote a lot of theoretical and practical activities on the first week that really go deep on giving tools and opening up different discussions. But until now, that one is a paid residency. So we still don't have the means to cover for participants' costs, although we work on that on every funding opportunity that we find, but up until now, it's still a paid program. We might have still free places for March, and we will have an air program in June, that for sure. But we will share more information about this on our social media next week. So if you don't mind to write us or to be aware of our social media, we will share that information very soon.
Thank you. And then there was another question with the previous one, which is if you could share more about the Curart project. Curarte, how do you say it?
Curart. So Curart is kind of a recent project. We started it in September last year, and it is focused on, it's our first project that is focused on curating exhibitions on public spaces, because we were struggling with this feeling that people had to come to the farm, they had to change their lives to come to the farm to enroll on our activities. So we started thinking how to navigate that. So we went to the health center that we have on this village of ours, which looks like a white cube with amazing natural light, and we started promoting collective exhibitions over there. So the idea of the project is that invited curators come, they select artists that somehow already worked at the village, they enrolled some kind of artistic residency, so they developed artworks here in situ and on the village through the farm. Doesn't really matter what was the project, but they must have developed their concepts or ideas or artworks here, and curators are invited to contact them, choose those works, and of course choose a concept to develop. So we just opened our second exhibition in the beginning of this month. Noemi was the curator in charge. Actually, the exhibition was dedicated to the fires that Noemi also spoke about. And we will have our next exhibition opening in May because each one of them lasts for 4 months. Yeah, and that's it.
Thank you so much. And maybe last question that would also be a good topic to close up the Q&A. It's can you talk a bit about the food production aspect of the Quinta? Who are working on producing food and who are the people who are consuming it?
Okay, so maybe that's also for me, right?
Yeah, that's definitely for you.
So
I can talk about who eats it.
We have an amazing example of someone that eats our food. 2 examples. So it's a very good question because every year is a challenge for us. And as I shared in the beginning, we are always evolving, and the way we even think how our team evolves every year. But something that it's kind of settled is that we have to plan every year for a different team, because most of our team members, not all of them, of course, but most of our team members are coming from different parts of the world or even different places in Portugal, so they can't really compromise to the farm for more than 1-2 seasons. So, for instance, we had David taking care of the agroforestry for 2 years, and you saw him on the video documentary, and now he's no longer working with us because he's going to develop his own project. And the farm works a lot like this. We are also kind of a co-work where people come to develop some skills, but it's normal that at some point they fly away and they create their own projects, and we are happy about it and we are okay with this evolution, because it's like, if we are talking about all these organic matters, we have to be okay with these things evolving. So on low season, as now I'm doing it, Antonio is doing it, so that's also something that we praise over here. Everybody does everything. That's what I meant when I said that this is a team of jacks of all trades. There is no specific rules to anybody. If I have free time, of course, I will just plant stuff, take weeds, feed the warbs, whatever. But when we do have abundance, which usually occurs in the end of spring and summer, we use those products to prepare meals that we then sell to people that visit us. So we have this summer project called From the Garden to the Plate, or people that visit us can buy the products directly from anyone in charge of producing them.
Right. Thank you so much once again for your presentation, and I hope many of us will have a chance to visit Quinta one day and experience it directly there, because I believe it is a very different and magical experience to be there. There is a lot of gratitude coming to you for the presentation in the chat section if you want to have a look. Thanks everyone again for joining. Please follow Quinta for their activities. I wish you best of luck. Also, please follow Residency Unlimited on our mailing list, Instagram, for more activities. We will be resuming in February with our in-person activities and residencies. So stay connected and hope to see you in person, online, in New York City or somewhere else in the world. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Bye.